Teething, tantrums and trouble sleeping are all issues faced by parents of young children, but parents often face into information overload with parenting books and pretty much everybody in the extended family offering their advice. It can all become quite overwhelming. So ahead of tomorrow's first National Baby Day, I'm joined in studio by a mother of three, Edel Gargan, who's a sleep consultant, and by Dr. Jim Keeley, who specialises in fever and pain. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Bob.
Now, this National Baby Day, it's happening tomorrow, and it's the brainchild of Nurofen for Children. So obviously, I presume if you're recommending pain relief, they prefer you pick theirs rather than somebody else's. That's for another day, perhaps. But first of all, Edel, I mean, how did you become a sleep expert and why?
Okay, good question, Pat. Well, I have three kids of my own, and the first two didn't exactly sleep. And also having to work full time, I needed some sleep. I was suffering badly from sleep deprivation. So I got very interested in the whole area.
Yeah. How bad was it, though, when you were trying to, once you'd finish your maternity leave, you're back at work?
Yeah.
What sort of state were you in the mornings going into work?
Pretty wrecked. I would have only had a few hours sleep. I would have had my little daughter sleeping on me and was too tired to get her into the cot or put any shape in her sleep. So you fall into a cycle of doing what you can do, really.
And then you stagger into work, caffeine overload then.
Exactly. And I have a creche, so I have to go into work with a smile on my face and be full of beans, which wasn't working.
It wasn't
so
working. So having had two children, that gave you grief in terms of sleeping, you decided I better learn something about this.
There wasn't a whole lot of information there at the time, and so I studied it through Naturally Nurturing in England, and then I came back and set up Baby Sleep Academy, and from there I've been working as a sleep expert.
So now, why does baby not sleep? I mean, some parents will tell you, well, it's just my child is so intelligent, they just can't wait for the day to begin, and they're so stimulated by everything they see, they're interested in everything. That's the reason. And other children say, well, mine slept for 14 hours last night.
Yeah.
And they grow up to be perfectly intelligent as well.
Yes.
So why are children having disrupted sleep?
It's all to do with sleep habits, really, or a lot of it is to do with sleep habits or illness. If they have a sleep habit, if they're used to going off to sleep while being rocked or being fed, a child will naturally wake up numerous times during the night. And if something has changed in their environment, they will need that again during the night to help them go back to sleep.
When you say something has changed, it could be something as simple as a soother that they go to sleep with.
Yeah.
It falls out.
Yeah, they can't put it back in.
Can't find it.
Yeah, they can't find it. They can't put it back in for themselves. They need mummy or daddy to do it for them. So that would be a typical reason why a child doesn't sleep.
Sometimes the child needs a bottle before they go to sleep.
Yeah, and then that winds them down. So when they wake up during the night, they can't wind themselves back down again, and they need another bottle to help them go back to sleep.
Because they associate that with a prelude to sleep. So it's kind of Pavlov's child rather than Pavlov's dog.
Exactly,
so they do that. Do we as parents, though, get into bad habits with our children? You know, indulge them. For example, you go in and you pick them up and take them into the bed, which some people feel is not a bad idea because it's comfortable for everyone and you don't have to get up. But other people will engage with the child.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sleeping with your child is absolutely fine. Once the child goes to sleep in the bed with you and there's no change during the night, then everybody can sleep well if it works for you. A lot of people fall into problems, say if a child is sick and they can't get the child back to sleep during the night, or if the child has a really high fever or something like that and they just want to be with them, they then tend to bring the child into bed, and then they've got into this habit, or the child.
I mean, it's a better place, isn't it? You've got mummy and daddy beside you, maybe, and it's much more interesting and comfortable and reassuring than sleeping on your own behind the bars of a cot.
Yeah, and a child will never say, "Okay, mummy, I'm okay now. You can put me back into the cot." They won't. They love being in the bed with you, and that's fine if it works for you. But if you're not getting sleep or the child's not getting sleep, then it's not working. And when the child is better, you should get right back to.
How quickly do children learn to play you?
Very quickly. A couple of nights.
Couple of nights.
Yeah, and
couple of nights being brought into the bed, and they say this works.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. So after 2 or 3 nights, a habit can be formed. But if it's only going on 2 or 3 nights, it's easily broken. If it's happening night after night after night for a few weeks.
In other words, if you allow it to become habit forming, then it'll be hard to break.
It will, exactly.
All right, I'll come back to you. There's a couple of questions coming in on sleep, but I want to talk to Dr. Jim Keeley, who specialises in fever and pain management in children. People are always kind of reluctant at the beginning, with the new baby particularly, to give them any kind of pain relief. Then they get exhausted, and it's some preparation that they know will give the child relief and get them to sleep. But you've got to be careful not to overdo it.
Absolutely. I mean, our advice always is to the parents, to react to the symptoms that the child has. If a child has a temperature, trying to reassure the parents that it's perfectly safe to give the prescribed dose, the recommended dose.
But no more than that.
But no more. And to be aware of what dosage they should be giving is key. So I would always try to assure parents that, using a medication like ibuprofen to actually control the temperature is not a problem.
All right, now some people will use two medications. In other words, you can take, say, paracetamol, which the kids will get in a product called Calpol. You can't take that more than so many drops or whatever, mils per hour. Equally with Nurofen for children, you can't take more than so many per 4-hour period or whatever. But people will, if the pain is severe, will use both medications and alternate them. Is that okay?
There have been studies done on that, and really nothing has come back to say you shouldn't do it. What I generally advise parents is to go with the one that they prefer. And if they prefer the ibuprofen, that's fine. And if they have a situation where it doesn't control completely the symptoms, they can augment it with the
because
paracetamol.
I know that adults will go for, say, an ibuprofen, and then they'll go for paracetamol, and then they'll go for ibuprofen. If they've got a really bad toothache or backache or whatever, that's what they do. Well, so you'd be cautious in doing too much of that with children.
One of the biggest problems, I suppose, as a GP that we see is that parents will often not treat the child, bring the child in with a really high temperature, and any cause of any high temperature makes the child look sick.
And the child can convulse.
Exactly. So what we try and encourage parents to do is let us see the child with the temperature down rather than with the temperature up, so that we can actually make a better judgment on what the cause is.
Obviously, if the child is hot, I mean, there are things you can do to cool them down. The last thing you really want to do is bring them into the parental bed, which is warm. Overheat them.
I could tell you stories about 4 kids coming into the bed, on a particular night, and nobody
sleeps.
Own kids, yes, yeah. Nobody sleeps, and nobody gets covered. And if it's winter, it's cold. So definitely.
But, I mean, would you take a child with a fever? Would you try to get that fever down? You'd take a temperature. Would you put them in a bath, for example, with warm, tepid water?
Bathing used to be a solution, but it's not recommended anymore. But definitely one of the key issues in relation to temperature is allowing your child to cool down. And
so if they're wearing a baby grow or whatever, strip it off and allow them fresh air, if nothing else.
The onesies are just a nightmare for parents, because they think that they should have the child in a jacket almost, and yet the child overheats. It can add a degree of temperature to the child if they overdress them.
At what point in fever terms do we get alarmed? What temperature should we be saying this could lead to convulsions?
Children will generally sort of look okay for any temperature under 39 degrees, but once they get 39 or 40, they usually feel miserable and look unwell. So you're trying to control a temperature down to 38. If you have a temperature and it's 38, you won't feel too bad. If it's 39, if it's 40, you'll feel miserable.
Now, it used to be 98 degrees Fahrenheit,
yes.
And then if you got to 104, you were dead.
Well,
I mean, as a child, this is what we learned. If you got to 104, you're dead. What are the parameters of normality?
Well, normality, 36.5 to 37.5 for a baby is an acceptable range. Now, some parents will tell you that their child comes in with a temperature of 35 on occasions.
Is low temperature a problem? No.
Not really. I think part of the problem that most parents have and believe is that their child is going to get too cold during the night, and that's not the case. Because if you bring a child into the bed, the first thing they do is kick off the clothes.
Yeah.
And so they're too hot. So children like to actually get air circulating around them, and as Edel will tell you, it's comfort that they want.
All right, some of the questions then for Edel. My nephew still sleeps with his parents. He'll be 9 this year. I think he's a bit clingy because of it. Am I too quick to judge? That's from Tom.
Well, if it's not a problem for him and his parents, then it's not really a problem. You know, there's many families, they sleep very well together, and once they're all getting sleep, it doesn't really matter. So it's down to the individual.
The problem
family.
is this child is smoking in the bed as well. No. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. You say 9. I mean, that seems a bit much, doesn't it? A bit extended.
Yeah, well, it might be, but yeah, it's down to each individual family and what they want to do. And once they're getting sleep and the required amount of sleep, then it's not an issue.
All right. Now, this one. Our 5-year-old was great until he was about 3 and used to go to sleep himself until he started having nightmares. We were both working at the time and got into the bad habit of letting him sleep with us. Now he's scared of the dark and won't go anywhere, even to the toilet by himself in the house, and he's 5. We want him to go to sleep on his own when we leave the room. Any suggestions as to how to help?
Okay, and that's a good question. It's quite common. Really, he needs a lot of reassurance, and leave a little light on in the room, and a little bit of music playing in the background can also help children feel very comforted. They don't feel alone. The middle of the night is very quiet and dark, and it can be quite scary for a young child. Have a good chat with them. Make sure that he knows that you're there. Respond to him all the time. When he's going off to sleep, pop in and out every 10, 20 seconds so that he knows that you're there.
We're going to the bathroom. Make sure it's
Exactly,
lit.
that it's lit.
There's no
Yeah.
point in sending the poor child out in the dark.
No, if he has that fear, work on the fear that he has and keep the place lit. He doesn't have to go to sleep in a dark room. A little nightlight and some music and lots of reassurance.
Someone else says, please ask your sleep expert, what can I do when I have a child on slow-release sleep aid medication and they still only sleep half the night, age 9?
Age 9, okay. That could be down to, well, firstly, if the child has any worries, you know, a school-age child could have a lot of worries, so have a good chat with the child. Also, sleep hygiene. How does the child go off to sleep? What are the child's sleep schedules? Look into that. See if the child can wind herself down, or is it only with pure exhaustion?
Is there a ritual that you would recommend for people pre-bedtime? I mean, for the older child, 3, 4 or whatever, it might be a bedtime story, might be a bath, it might be their bedtime snack. But does that ritual pay off that you say, okay, now we start. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, and the last thing inevitably is going to be sleep?
Yeah, it really does pay off. A child needs to know what's coming next. You need to have a routine, and a child needs a chance to wind down before bed. You'd find it difficult to go home from work and go straight to bed. The same with the child. They need to know what's coming next, so a bath would help them wind down. It doesn't need to be a bath. Stories, a chat, some time in the bedroom is important. And also let the time be fun, not stimulating, but fun, something that they look forward to, so they enjoy going to bed. And again, that's a precious moment for the child to tie into National Baby Day tomorrow. It's all about precious moments.
Okay.